Okay, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. It's a great pleasure to have you here today. So before we get to the questions of if and how startups can save the planet, I just want to take a little bit of time to discuss the many different hats that you've worn, from policy to entrepreneurship. Can you tell us a little bit more about your roles, what you currently do?
So, hi everyone. Ayman, thank you for inviting me to speak today. So I have particular roles that I fill. I'm originally an architect. 20 years ago, I graduated very, very occupied with the future of architecture and the relevance of what it is that we are intending to do. My role with the UN framework for climate change as a global ambassador is to represent non-state actors and to represent the civil society, NGOs, entrepreneurs, and private sector in trying to get them as engaged as possible in the climate action, Race to Zero and Race to Resilience movement. I have been serving as a senior advisor to the Egyptian president since 2014. My primary role was to discuss with the then very fluid situation in Egypt. You know, we didn't really have government. It wasn't really, a state then. I don't know how to describe it, but you know what I mean. And then I come in and I start talking about climate change. And I start trying to make the crowd believe that we have to do something and we have to take part in this global movement, otherwise we'll be sidelined. And in being sidelined, not only as a country, but as a nation, and we will not be able to develop economically or have any kind of impact if we're not part of this discussion. And therefore, I have been working on this since 2014 with a huge belief. I had quite a challenge since that, with the incoming of President Trump, the US exited the agreement. So you're trying to convince more and more people that we still need to stay in the agreement and hold force. So that's a lot of policy work and a lot of convincing. My own personal hat, the one that I wear with great pride, is I am a green entrepreneur. I left the family business to start a company that really wants to make green architecture something that is mainstream, something that is available. At that time, there was no such thing in Egypt as registering for what is a green building consultant. I mean, what do you do that is different from architecture? And my family were not very supportive of my exit from the business. And therefore, I started my company by selling my car. And that's the capital that I had. And we started a company set out to disrupt the conventional architecture sector because we saw all over the world that green buildings are exclusive to very high-income communities, exclusive to a particular technology, and we need them. It was exciting for me to work on a product that every single human being on Earth uses. We all use buildings, and therefore, we need to get them right. So that's how we started the company ECOnsult. And in 2022, January 2022, I started another startup that produces furniture from upcycled waste wood. So I've been doing this green thing for a long time. It's been a very interesting space to occupy policy and then, and have this very creative aspect.
So moving on to sort of the entrepreneurial side, why do you think green economy, climate change, adaptation, or resilience, why should it matter to people entering the space of entrepreneurship? So you've talked a little bit from the policy side. I just feel like you can tell us a little bit more from the entrepreneurial side, why this is a big topic right now, why should we be paying attention, and so on.
I don't think that it's big right now as much as it is urgent right now. We have to be very careful when we talk about what's trendy. The word sustainability has been very trendy for a long time, but the business of doing sustainability is very tricky. And it's going to be very tricky to work in the business of being green or doing green business. You know, an ecopreneur is somebody that is trying to change how the sector works. And so you have to identify to what rate you're going to, you know, you need to be an athlete in this. And I think some of the speakers before were saying exactly how they start off, you know, pace yourself and everything. The reason why it's important, and I think I might get in trouble for saying this, but I don't think in a few years we're going to have the WEF, the World Economic Forum, and then COP, and then everything. I think it's just going to be development. And development is not going to come in pieces as it looks right now. I think it's very fragmented and compartmentalized right now, just to usher in so much of what's happening. We have to think about not just being on a global scale, a movement. We have to think about trying to do business at a time and in a world where everything is fluid. Look, politics is fluid. Financing is fluid. You get shocks that are coming in and out like that. You cannot be conventional, and you cannot be always promoting this you know, growth during stability. That's not really what's happening right now. Instability is becoming the norm, and you have to swim upstream and downstream, and you have to be very agile and flexible in it. So I think there's so much room for diversity, and there's so much room for growth, especially when it comes to moving towards greener economies and for entrepreneurs. The variety is becoming very big, and this is what I think is very relevant right now for entrepreneurs. You know, when we think green entrepreneurs, we think of somebody who's in recycling, somebody who's doing something to do with energy, but the scope is becoming very big. The scope is about behavior. Now, it's about consuming and producing, and behavior is endless. So I think, you know, we're at the cusp of a huge expansion when it comes to this. It's a really, really energetic time. We should take advantage of it.
So great. This is a really good time to also ask you, where do you see sort of the biggest opportunities? So you mentioned that we tend to think of it as mostly recycling and other sort of stereotypical businesses. And now is a really great time to also shed light on what other areas there are for entrepreneurs who are looking to enter this space.
Okay, the first thing that I think there's a very big opportunity. So we have you know, the green champions. We have the renewables. Definitely there is more and more interest in how the supply chain and sourcing food and agriculture. The Intergovernmental report on climate change, the panel on climate change, just issued a really sobering report that, hey, where's the construction industry? Where are the architects? What's happening with green buildings? And once you see movement into questioning how an entire sector as sophisticated like that is being called to action, that's when you know that you have to start gearing yourselves that there will be potential for green growth in that sector, in how we make cities. This is the first one. The second one is definitely in the retail and how we purchase. This is a growing market because suddenly we're all conforming to carbon footprinting and impact and all of that. So this is a very interesting one. The one that I feel is very relevant to Egypt and Africa is we have to bear in mind when we're moving into green tech and green entrepreneurship, who's our customer, okay? For me, it's particularly interesting because, you know, if you look at specific initiatives like A Decent Life or Millennial Villages or Africa, etc., that is 58 million people. 58 million people require housing, require buildings, and these 58 million people will never, ever hire an architect. We're not considered the service provider that will come in and, you know, do interior decoration for these homes. It's not their loss, it's my loss, that I need to tap into the market of rural, low-income communities. And this is the potential. This is the potential we need to explore. The technology, is it accessible? Is it affordable? Is it scalable? Is it culturally relevant? There are huge opportunities to work on water, energy, the provision of food, ag tech, green buildings, but not just for the very, exclusive city, the new cities kind of customer. We need to look into the rural communities, and we need to develop products that are relevant to them. And another thing that is very interesting is there is a pool of knowledge within rural communities, within low-income communities, that if you do not utilize this knowledge as an entrepreneur, wow, you're missing out. There is embedded R&D there that if you can tap into, it's incredible. We did that. We have the first carbon-neutral, low-income village in the MENA region 5 years ago. I did that with Egyptian architects, with local labor, with local material, and I had to sit down with the tribe leaders and I had to take their inputs into how to keep the insects away and how do they move around when it comes to different seasonality. These are things that if I graduated from wherever I graduated from and read as many books and tapped into many apps, I still wouldn't have gotten that piece of invaluable knowledge. So we have to be very good at knowing where we get our information from, and the end user, we have to empower them to be part of the design of the product that we're making. Otherwise, let's just always stick to that part of the line. I think green entrepreneurship has to serve and has to work with and develop with the incredible amount of resources that you have there.
So I think that one of the biggest challenges that entrepreneurs entering the space are facing is exactly trying to reconcile making an impact to that customer segment that you mentioned, but also remaining profitable. So you mentioned, of course, that this specific customer segment wouldn't necessarily hire an architect and so on, and yet these are the people on the other side of the opportunity. So do you have any insights or advice how to reconcile impact and also profitability or sustainability of the business, like maybe drawing onto your own, two businesses?
I'm not very good at giving advice, but I can tell you exactly what happens, and it works. So obviously, you can turn that into advice. But we've had our fortunes turned several times. So as a green company starting off, we always had, why would I need you? Why would I want to go green? Keep tabs on the policy. Keep tabs on the direction that systems are moving and economies are moving into. We knew that the minute the energy subsidies will be removed, and this is a national reform initiative, that we will suddenly have people come to us and telling us, listen, I don't care what the building looks like, just save me all of this money. Suddenly, you are commodifying waste. That's my angle of entry into the market. I'm saving water, I'm saving energy, and I'm saving on materials, and therefore I'm disrupting the architecture sector. We built the first mosque without a minaret simply because there was no one to call out in the middle of the desert to come to prayer. Why would I need a minaret? Why would I need X amount of building material? And we had to go through the Ministry of Endowment and explain to them rating systems and everything. It's been a journey, but keep tabs with the directions that are happening. And this is a very good starting point. The second thing is, when you are ahead of what's happening, you're very informative and useful for your clients. They keep coming back to you. We keep coming, having reoccurring clients. Design a new building. Listen, how am I functioning? What's wrong? Why am I not retaining people? What's the next step? So you have to always be knowledgeable, and there is absolutely no need to greenwash. Don't say something if you're not doing it. Just stick to what you do it very well, make it accessible and easy to follow and repeatable. And then you have to work on, in our case, we entered the market at the time when everyone was saying sustainability. We had mud huts, we had buildings made of clay. And to be quite honest, the reputation of green buildings was not that either well known, and there were a lot of misconceptions that green buildings are either unsafe or unhygienic in the middle of the desert in the shape of huts, or they are extremely expensive and not affordable. And we had to start breaking this down. I don't think we're in that same place right now. I think we are much more enlightened and we are much more willing to listen. And if we have successes on the ground, this is the opportunity. So I would definitely advise that before you say we provide good green buildings or I am a green business, Show them the model on the ground. This is it. It's been up and running. This is the cost of construction. It's the same as conventional. And then you can start talking about why not and making a difference. You build that trust, the clients start coming to you because they want to affiliate with someone who does something good and does it at a decent cost. It's that simple.
Absolutely. I just want to go back to the phrase where you said keep tabs on what's happening. What should we be keeping tabs on right now for anybody who's interested in entering this space? Are there any specific key points that you want to highlight, something specific for entrepreneurs to keep tabs on at this specific point in time?
This is relevant to say COP27 as well. First of all, you need to look at how energy is moving around the world. Suddenly we have Europe is interested in buying energy from here. So look at the energy providing companies, some of which are here today, etc. Look at the global trends of what's happening. Look at scarcity in management, in resources. So we know that Egypt has a water scarcity issue. We know that the geopolitics involved is leading to this. So investment in water-saving technologies cross-sector is an important one. You know this. It's not like we're going to be surprised. Okay? But then also make sure that you're operating in the right context with your business. Still, until today, you will still find resistance, to plant-based food. Okay, is that relevant here? Plant-based food. Is it changing? Is it a game changer here in Egypt? Or am I going to build a company that is going to serve a particular income strata? And I'm still not talking to the rest of that 60 million. So you have to be relevant as to what you're operating. Also look at low-tech, affordable solutions. This is where a lot of the investment in a lot of the new startups is going, because you want to scale it out to Africa, you want to scale it out to communities. Plus, also, it's a very good place to source your hiring from the informal sector. There's a lot of creativity there. So, verified tech, which is a new word, veritech, soft tech. All of these new terminologies are coming in because it's relevant to Africa, it's relevant to North Africa, it's relevant to Egypt, and we'll hear more and more about this. So keep tabs on the trends that are going to solve your issues and your problems and also allow you to grow. The last thing that you want is to, end up investing in creating a product and your principal competitor is a giant mega company creating this product with, millions and millions of dollars to burn each week on R&D, okay? I mean, you can do that. You can try that out if you want. Everyone's free to do whatever I want. But in my case, I wanted to make sure that we're doing a product that's going to change the way things are being done, and I want to prove that we can do it at a local level.
On a final note, I think some of us know about COP27. I think a lot of us don't. So can you just shed some light on what it is, why it's important, how potential entrepreneurs can benefit from it, what can they hope to gain?
Yeah, so COP in general is it's a series of negotiations, right? It's a bunch of really, ideally, honestly, politicians. They are sitting there, they're having negotiations after negotiations, and it's a very organized and grown-up way of having a conversation around tackling climate change. So it's not very alien anymore. COP used to happen, and it was some sort of like UN event that was happening with governments, and that's it. The reason why COP is becoming more and more relevant is that they've discovered that if you lock up the politicians in a room and governments in a room to solve your problems without having your voice present in that, the outcome is probably going to be very anticlimactic and a bit useless. So COP is an extension of the conversation with everyone, because we are all affected by climate change. I know what I need. Some people don't know what they need. Some people underestimate the science behind climate change. But at the end of the day, you need to be present at that negotiation table with your voice brought forward, because deals come out of COP. Pacts come out of COP and agreements come out of COP. The whole point of COP is that it's a series of countries that were able to go through an industrial revolution and really move forward exceptionally quickly without any accountability or anyone holding them back about the environmental issues. It's our turn now to go through economic development. But however, we now have a checklist of things that we have to stick to. So how do you negotiate? You negotiate that, hey, listen, you've done your part, you were not held accountable, it's my turn today to grow as an economy, to flourish, to create jobs. Why don't you help me pay to do so in a way where I'm not contributing further to environmental degradation? That's it. That's what the grown-ups sit at the table and talk about. That's what the politicians are there to do, to represent your interest as a country. Not all countries have the same challenges, and not all countries have the same access to solutions, but every single country has society and community suffering from the problem. So it's a sense of ownership with accountability and negotiations to allow everyone to have a fair chance at growth. That is what COP is about. Yes, it's viewed a bit of an expo that everybody wants to be there, but really ideally, the most important thing about COP is the build-up to COP and the representation to COP of what you're trying to do, the white papers, the societal dialogues, the debates that are happening, that are put forward to government so that government can speak with a more inclusive tone at the event itself.
Great. So thank you so much for your insights. I think you've shed light on a lot of things that perhaps a lot of people are hearing for the first time today. It was a pleasure to have you.
There's a hat that I didn't mention. So
Please.
I'm very proudly serving on the advisory board of the School of Business, and I'm really happy that they have the green, the green take on many of the issues. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you.